If someone had told me the most confident woman I know would be my boss and my quiet obsession, I would have laughed to hide the truth. The first time I saw her, she didn't look at me. She didn't need to. She walked into the Orion room like it belonged to her because it did. When she set a leather-bound notebook on the table and adjusted the cuffs of her blazer, the air shifted. People straightened in their seats. Conversations cut off mid-sentence. Even the intern with the too loud laugh went silent. And me, I forgot how to breathe. Her name was Sloane Harrington, creative director, certified genius, terrifying perfectionist, openly gay, and exactly the kind of woman I'd built an entire private fantasy life around. Without realizing it, I'd been hired 2 weeks earlier as the new junior copywriter, still fumbling through the glass maze of Harrington and Bloom's 7th floor. Until then, I'd only caught her in passing, blurred glimpses between closing elevator doors, the sculpted line of her shoulders disappearing into boardrooms. But now she was 3 feet away, her send a sharp, expensive whisper of cedar and smoke, her voice cutting through the air like velvet over steel as she said, "Let's begin." I tried not to stare. I failed. She was tall, not statuesque, not ethereal, but solid, grounded, like the world rotated just a little differently around her. Her hair was dark, slipped back in a style that said, "I own you," without ever having to say a word. And her eyes, God, her eyes were this unreal, stormy gray, like wet slate, sharp enough to slice through silence. She didn't look at me during that first meeting, but when I introduced myself afterward, she paused, turned, and her gaze landed on me like a hand pressed against my chest. "You're the new writer," she said. Not a question, a statement. I nodded. "Aria Bennett. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you." "Aria," she repeated like she was tasting it. "Welcome to the fire." And then she walked away just like that. I stood frozen for a full 10 seconds, brain melting, heart pounding like I'd just been chosen and sentenced at the same time. The other writers barely acknowledged it, but I saw the way one of the art directors arched an eyebrow at me, like she was already fitting me into a very specific narrative. A week later, I was working late again. The office was mostly empty, the soft glow of the city outside the floor-to-ceiling windows casting long shadows over my desk. I just finished the second draft of a perfume campaign when I heard heels clicking behind me. Slow, precise. Then her voice, low and close. "Still here?" I turned, almost knocking over my coffee. Yeah, just wanted to clean up some phrasing." The tagline wasn't landing. Sloane's eyes moved over the screen, then to me. "Let me see." She leaned down, one hand on the desk beside mine, her other hand resting lightly on the back of my chair. Her body heat radiated through my blouse. I could smell her again. Smoke and cedar, and something else I couldn't name. She read in silence for a few seconds, then nodded once. "It works now." I swallowed. "You think so? I know so," she said, straightening. "Trust your instinct. Don't ask permission to be right." She walked away, and I sat there, heart racing, completely unable to remember what breathing felt like. That night, I dreamed about her. Not explicitly, nothing I'd have to confess to a therapist, but it was her voice in my ear, her hand over mine, her mouth impossibly close. I woke up flushed and breathless. I tried to shake it off. I'd worked for intimidating bosses before. I'd had crushes on unavailable women. This was no different, except it was. Because every time she passed my desk, every time her fingers brushed mine when she handed me a file, every time she looked at me like she was reading something I hadn't written yet, I felt it. The tension, the possibility, the danger. I found myself dressing more carefully, choosing tops that clung a little tighter, skirts that hit just above the knee. I started wearing perfume, just a hint of something floral and warm, because I wanted her to notice. I didn't admit that out loud, but I knew. One Friday, she called me into her office. Her door was glass, but the blinds were drawn. "Close it behind you," she said. Her tone was unreadable. I obeyed. She didn't look up at first, just kept reading something on her screen. Then she turned slowly and gestured to the chair across from her. I sat. She leaned back, steepling her fingers under her chin. "Tell me, Arya, do you always stay late because you're a perfectionist or because you're trying to impress me?" My breath caught. What? A flicker of amusement danced at the corner of her mouth. "You're good. Very good. But you second-guess yourself. You hesitate. Why?" I want to be excellent," I said, my voice barely steady. "You already are," she replied. "But you don't believe it." "Not yet." I swallowed hard. "I don't want to disappoint you." Her gaze darkened. "You couldn't, even if you tried." My pulse thundered. I should have stood. I should have laughed. I should have broken the tension. But I didn't move. Neither did she. The air between us was electric, charged, like something was about to break. Then her phone rang. She answered without looking at it. "Harrington." A pause. A frown. "Tell them I'll call back." She hung up, then met my eyes again. "We should both go home," she said softly. Before I say something I shouldn't, I stood slowly. "Okay." As I reached for the door, she added, "But Arya Bennett." I turned. "Next time, don't wear that lipstick unless you're trying to kill me." My fingers froze on the handle. My knees nearly buckled, but I didn't look back. I walked out, heart pounding, mind spinning, every nerve in my body lit up with the impossible heat of what had just happened. She was my boss. She was confident. She was definitely gay. And I was completely, irreversibly, utterly screwed. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed replaying every second of that office encounter. The way her eyes had pinned me in place. The way her voice dipped just low enough to feel like a caress. The way she'd said my name with a kind of hunger disguised as restraint. My skin was still buzzing. My lips still tingling from the ghost of the lipstick she claimed had nearly killed her. And the worst part, I didn't want to run from it. I wanted more. I wanted her to cross the line she was so clearly dancing on. To take whatever had been building in the space between us and let it ignite. But she hadn't. She'd stopped herself, which meant I had to stop, too, right? Except I couldn't. Monday came, and with it the usual chaos. Pitches, deadlines, passive-aggressive emails, coffee breaks that were never long enough. But all of it blurred around the edges because I couldn't stop sensing her. Sloane, every time she walked past my desk, I felt it like static on my skin. Every time her voice echoed from the other side of the floor, I shivered. I avoided eye contact. I said good morning like I hadn't imagined her mouth on mine every night since Friday. And she was the same. Too calm, too composed. But I saw the pause in her step when our eyes met across the hallway. I saw the flicker of tension in her jaw when I laughed at someone else's joke. I saw it all. We were both pretending nothing had shifted while everything had. That week, she assigned me to a campaign I had no business leading. Luxury cosmetics, high profile, high pressure. "You're ready?" she said when I blinked at her office door, the brief trembling in my hands. "And I need you on this." "Why me?" I asked. Her eyes searched mine slow and deliberate. "Because I trust you." The words sank deep. That night, I stayed late again. Not because I had to, but because I couldn't bring myself to leave the floor where her scent still lingered in meeting rooms and her voice still echoed in the silence. I was reviewing notes when the door creaked open, and she stepped inside without knocking. "Working late again." "Old habits," I replied. She didn't sit. She walked behind me, fingers grazing the back of my chair. "You're wearing it again," she said. My breath caught the lipstick. I looked up at her, throat dry. "Do you want me to stop?" A long pause. Then, no. Just that simple. Devastating. Her hand came to rest lightly on the edge of my desk. fingers brushing against mine for the briefest second. "Do you know what you're doing to me?" she asked quietly. "I don't know what I'm doing to myself," I whispered, her eyes closed for a moment, as if studying something inside her. "This can't happen. I know it's a line we don't cross. I know." And yet neither of us moved. The silence stretched thick with everything unsaid. Everything we were both too afraid to admit but too intoxicated to deny. Finally, she stepped back. "Go home, Arya. Is that an order?" I asked, pushing my luck, letting my voice dip just enough to reveal the ache beneath. Her gaze turned dangerous. "It's a plea." And then she left. I packed up slowly, my hands trembling. I didn't see her the next morning, or the one after that. I asked around. "Client meeting," someone said. "Working remotely today," another guessed. But it didn't feel like coincidence. It felt like avoidance. That Thursday, she returned. She looked flawless as always. Pressed suit, cool expression, no trace of what had passed between us. And yet, when our eyes met in the hallway, I saw it. The heat, the regret, the need. That afternoon, she called a team meeting. Everyone filed into the Orion room, buzzing with nerves. She stood at the head of the table, poised and sharp, delivering updates with her usual commanding elegance. But halfway through, her eyes flicked to mine, and for just a second, the mask slipped. Her voice faltered. No one else noticed, but I did. That night, she sent me an email. No subject, just one line. "We need to talk." Off the record, she sent an address. The Larkspur not far from the office. Private, discreet. I hesitated for exactly 3 minutes. Then I went. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a booth in the back, nursing something dark in a crystal glass. When she saw me, she stood. "Thanks for coming. You said we needed to talk," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. "We do." A pause. "Then this thing between us. It's a problem." I nodded. "I know. But not because of HR or appearances or even the power dynamic," she said, eyes locked on mine. "It's a problem because I don't know how to stop wanting you." My breath hitched. "Then don't." Her jaw tightened. "You don't understand. I've done this before. I've blurred lines. It never ends well. I'm not them," I said. "And you're not who you were then. You don't even know me." "Then let me." She stared at me for a long time as if weighing everything. Every risk, every rule, every part of herself she'd tried to keep hidden. "Arya," she whispered, "if I touch you, I won't be able to stop. Then touch me." And she did. Her mouth was on mine before I could process the fact that she'd actually moved. One moment there was breath between us, tension to touch. And the next there was no distance, no hesitation, just heat. The kind that starts slow but spreads fast, like a match to dry leaves. Sudden and hungry and impossible to contain. Her hands found my face first, cradling my jaw with a gentleness that almost broke me. Mine gripped her blazer like I was afraid she'd disappear if I let go. And maybe I was. Her lips were demanding, urgent. But there was restraint under the surface. A kind of held-back desperation that made it even more unbearable. Like she was starving but trying not to devour me. But I wanted to be devoured. When we broke apart, breathing hard, she didn't look away. "We shouldn't have done that," she said. But she didn't sound sorry. Her fingers were still tangled in my hair. Her forehead brushed mine. "I don't regret it," I whispered. "But I know this complicates everything." "Everything was already tangled," she said. "This only makes it honest." We left the bar in separate directions. No one saw us. We didn't speak again after that until the next morning, when a calendar ping hit my inbox. A meeting request from her, one-on-one, private. My stomach flipped as I clicked accept. The rest of the day bleached out half-written lines over steeped tea. Half-hearted attempts at normal while my skin still burned where she'd touched me. The meeting was set for 5. I arrived at her office on the breath shallow, pulse unsteady. She looked up when I stepped in and, For a heartbeat, we just stared. No words, only tension, want, uncertainty. Close the door, she said. I closed it. She rose, circled the desk at an unhurried pace, and leaned against the edge, arms folded. Her expression unreadable. We need to talk, she said. Do we? I managed, trying to sound steadier than I felt. Because if this is about yesterday, it's about everything, she cut in. This pull, you and me. I've spent weeks pretending it isn't there. I can't anymore. I don't want to. Then don't, Arya, she added softly. I'm your boss. I'm not asking for favors. I'm asking you not to lie to me or to yourself. She glanced down, then back up. Something inside her giving way. If we do this, it won't be casual. I don't do casual. I won't let it touch the work. But I won't pretend I don't feel what I feel. What do you feel? I asked. She stepped closer, so near I felt the heat of her body. Obsession, she said. Hunger. Constant distraction. The urge to press you against every flat surface and kiss you until you forget your name. I swallowed. That sounds inconvenient. It's unbearable. Then her mouth was on mine again, harder. Her hand slid down my spine, caught at my waist, hauled me closer. I gasped into her, my fingers threading into her hair, anchoring as her tongue traced the edge of mine. No pretense this time. No hesitation. We kissed like people who'd waited too long, who had burned in silence for weeks, and were finally allowed to touch. When she broke away, her breathing was ragged. Come home with me, she said. Now. I didn't answer, I nodded. Her apartment was exactly what I'd pictured. Minimalist, expensive, impossibly clean. Dark wood floors, cream walls, everything in its place except me. I didn't belong in her world, but I wanted to. As soon as the door shut, she turned. Are you sure? Yes, I said without a stutter. Then let me show you what I've been holding back. She kissed me again, slow, irreverent, until my knees went weak. She led me to the bedroom, undressing me piece by piece, like unwrapping something fragile. I had never felt so seen. Her touch was deliberate. Her gaze never left mine. The silence between us thickened, loud with my heartbeat. She touched my cheek like a question and a promise, and I answered by leaning in instead of stepping back. Everything else, work, rules, good sense, fell to the edges, while the one thing we'd refused to name finally took up all the space. She asked permission with every movement, and I gave it willingly. When she finally lowered me onto her bed and moved over me, I felt worshipped, desired, owned. And when she whispered my name into the hollow of my throat, I realized I didn't want to go back to a version of life where this hadn't happened. After we lay tangled in her sheets, bodies flushed, breath slowing, she traced circles on my stomach with her fingers. Tell me this isn't a mistake, she whispered. It's not, I said, but it's going to be complicated. Everything worth having is, she murmured. We didn't talk about work or boundaries or what this would mean when Monday came. We just existed in the space we created, raw and real and finally honest. I fell asleep with her arm wrapped around my waist, her breath soft against my neck, and a truth pulsing quietly in my chest. I was falling fast, and if she didn't catch me, I didn't know how I'd survive the landing. Monday morning came like a threat. The kind that hums beneath your skin before anything actually explodes. I stood in front of my closet for 30 minutes, staring at my clothes like they were questions I didn't know how to answer. What did one wear after sleeping with their boss? Professional, but not forgettable. Confident, but not calculated. Seductive? No, absolutely not. Except maybe just a little. I settled on a black blouse with a delicate neckline and slim gray trousers. Subtle, safe, just enough lipstick to hint that I remembered what she said. Just enough perfume to make sure she did, too. The elevator ride to the 7th floor was torture. Every ding felt like a countdown. I rehearsed what I'd say if anyone asked why my weekend had left me looking like I hadn't slept, but also somehow more awake than ever. When the doors opened, I stepped out and saw her, Sloane, standing near the reception desk, clipboard in hand, talking to one of the designers. She glanced up as I approached. Her eyes met mine for exactly 1 second. Cool, unreadable, professional. Then she turned back to her conversation like I was just another employee arriving late on a Monday. My stomach twisted. I walked past her straight to my desk, heart hammering. My inbox was full. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the first email. She didn't come by. She didn't text. She didn't call me into her office. She was everywhere and nowhere all at once, passing me in hallways, giving crisp directives in meetings, commanding every room with that same impossible calm, but never looking directly at me. Not once. By lunchtime, I was unraveling. I skipped the cafeteria and retreated to the rooftop terrace, hoping the fresh air would clear my thoughts. It didn't. 10 minutes later, the door creaked open and I heard footsteps. I turned, expecting anyone but her. "We need to be careful," she said before I could speak. "People notice everything here." "So, we're pretending nothing happened?" I asked. "Is that how this works?" "It's how we survive," she replied, stepping closer. "I want you, Arya. That hasn't changed. But I can't afford to lose my credibility over a mistake." The word hit me like ice water. A mistake. Her face tightened. "I didn't mean it like that." "Then how did you mean it?" I snapped, the hurt bubbling up too fast. "Because from where I'm standing, it seems like you got what you wanted, and now you're closing the door behind you." "That's not fair," she said. "No, it's not. But neither is acting like I'm invisible after what happened." She looked away, jaw clenched. "I'm trying to protect both of us." "Then say it," I challenged. "Say you want me, not just behind closed doors, not just in your bed. Say it." She stepped forward and for a moment I saw the crack in her armor, the part of her that wanted to say it, the part that had for honesty. But then the door opened again. Another coworker, a junior strategist. She blinked at us, confused but polite. Didn't mean to interrupt. Sloane turned to me with a tight smile. "We'll finish this later." Then she left. I stared after her, furious and aching and so hopelessly drawn to her I could barely breathe. That night I told myself I wouldn't answer if she called. I told myself I was done being the secret. But when her name flashed on my phone just after midnight, I answered before the second ring. "I can't stop thinking about you," she said, voice raw. "Then come here," I whispered. She did. This time was different. Less urgency, more reverence. Her hands shook when she touched me. Mine did too. We didn't rush. We didn't speak much, just eyes, lips, skin, breath. It wasn't just sex. It was surrender. And in the quiet after, lying tangled in my sheets, she whispered, "You terrify me." "Why?" I asked. "Because I can't compartmentalize you. I can't file you away like I do everything else." "Then don't. You don't understand. I built everything on control, power, distance. But you make me want to risk it all." I reached for her hand. "Then maybe it's time you did." She didn't reply, but she didn't let go either. The next morning, she left before sunrise. No note, no text, just the imprint of her on my pillow, and the echo of her voice in my head saying I terrify her. I just didn't know if that meant she'd finally let me in or disappear for good. I didn't hear from her for 2 days. Not a text, not a glance in the hallway, not even one of her cryptic, loaded looks across a meeting room that used to ignite something dangerous under my skin. It was as if she'd disappeared into the role of creative director with a vengeance, retreating behind walls of professionalism and cold efficiency so flawless it made me wonder if I'd imagined the way she'd moaned my name against my throat just nights before. But I hadn't imagined anything. My body remembered everything. So did hers. And it was killing me. The office felt different now. Every space I walked into, I wondered if she'd been there moments before. Every room I passed with the blinds closed, I imagined her inside, avoiding me. I was unraveling, and no one noticed. Except Tessa Park, the senior copywriter I worked beside. During the morning brainstorm, she leaned in and murmured, "You okay? You look like you haven't slept in a week." I smiled too fast. "I'm fine. Just brutal deadlines." She narrowed her eyes, not convinced. "If you say so." I buried myself in the work, trying to drown the thoughts. But every line I wrote started sounding like her. Every tagline landed too sultry. Every product description read like a secret breathed in the dark. I hated how easily she lived in my head, even when she refused to exist in my day. On Thursday evening, I stayed late, not to prove anything, just because I couldn't go home. Not when the sheets still smelled like her. I was alone in the office when the elevator chimed. I didn't look up. I didn't need to. I felt her before I saw her. She didn't speak, just walked slowly toward my desk, heels soft against the polished concrete, like she was trying not to startle me or herself. I kept typing, refusing to give her the satisfaction of knowing how fast my heart was beating. She stopped beside my chair. "Arya." I looked up, deliberately calm. "I wasn't sure you still remembered my name." Her jaw tightened. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Speak like someone who is very recently naked in your bed, but now can't get a single text back." I needed time. "You always need time because this matters," she said, her voice sharper now. "Because I can't afford to get this wrong." "Then why did you come back?" "Because not coming back felt worse." I stood slowly, the space between us electric and suffocating all at once. "What do you want, Sloane?" She stared at me, and for once I saw all of her, the cracks in her armor, the ache, the fear. "I want to stop pretending," she said. "I want to stop compartmentalizing. I want to wake up and not feel guilty for wanting you." "Then do it." "It's not that easy." "Why not?" I demanded. "Is it the job, the title, your reputation?" "Because I'm tired of being your secret." "You're not a secret," she said, stepping closer. "You're the only thing I think about." My breath caught. She kept moving forward until there was no space left. Every meeting, every pitch, every time I tried to sleep. "I see you. I feel you. And I don't know how to be around you without wanting to break every rule I've built my career on." "Then break them," I whispered. She leaned in so close her lips nearly brushed mine. "Are you really ready for what that means?" "Yes." Her lips finally met mine, and this time there was no hesitation, just fire. Her hands were in my hair, mine gripping her waist, and the kiss was deep, desperate, like an apology and a promise rolled into one. She pulled back, only slightly, breathless. "Come with me." "Where?" "Anywhere we won't get caught." We ended up in her car, parked in a shadowed corner of a quiet garage. The windows fogged almost instantly. I climbed into her lap and kissed her like I'd forgotten everything. But the way she made me feel alive, wanted, dangerous. Her hands roamed my body with a kind of familiarity that made it impossible to pretend. We could stop this. And when she whispered, "God, I missed you," against my ear, I broke. After we sat in silence, both of us still tangled, her coat draped over my shoulders, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on my thigh. "We can't keep doing this in the dark," I said quietly. "I know. What happens now?" "I don't have an answer yet," she admitted. "But I want to find one with you." I nodded, leaning my head against her shoulder. That's all I needed to hear. "You terrify me," she whispered again. "Then let's be scared together." She kissed me one last time before driving me home, her hand holding mine the entire way. We didn't talk about the next day, but we both knew everything was about to change. The next morning, I walked into the office with her touch still on my skin and her voice still in my ear. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I should feel exhilarated or terrified. I was late intentionally. I needed to avoid the usual elevator ride, the overlapping rivals, the eyes that were starting to linger too long. As I stepped out onto the 7th floor, I tried to move with purpose, had high heart pounding. My desk was where I left it. My inbox was overflowing, but nothing felt normal anymore. I glanced across the room to her office. The blinds were half drawn. Her silhouette moved past the frosted glass. Quick, focused, distant. I sat, logged in, tried to breathe. But the energy had shifted. I could feel it. Tessa looked at me over her monitor with a squint. "You okay?" she asked. "Fine," I lied. She tilted her head. "You sure?" "Why wouldn't I be?" She gave a half shrug. "Just something feels different. Sloane has been in a mood since she got here. More intense than usual." I smiled weakly. "Maybe she's just tired. Or maybe she's sleeping with someone," Tessa said under her breath. The words punched the air out of my lungs. "What?" She blinked. I said maybe she's sleeping less. Stress can do that. I stared at her for a second too long. She raised an eyebrow. "Okay, that was weird. What's going on?" "Nothing," I said too quickly. "Deadlines, that's all." She muttered, clearly not convinced. I turned back to my screen, fingers frozen on the keyboard. Were we that obvious? Was something slipping already? Or was it just me unraveling from the inside out? A calendar invite popped up on my screen. One-on-one from her. I clicked it open, heart racing. Orion Room 3B, 15 minutes confidential. I stood too fast, knocking a pen off my desk. My hands were shaking. I grabbed my notebook, an unnecessary prop, and walked toward the back of the floor, past the buzz of team chatter and the hum of printers. When I entered the room, she was already there. The door clicked shut behind me. "We have a problem," she said. "Which one?" I asked quietly. She paced once, then stopped in front of the whiteboard, arms crossed. "People are starting to notice." "Tessa knows," I said. "Or suspects. Anyone else?" "Not yet." She turned to face me, eyes sharp, but full of conflict. "We can't afford a scandal. Not now. Not with this client launch coming up." "So, what do you want to do?" I asked, heart breaking a little. "End it?" She looked at me, and I saw the storm in her eyes. "I don't know." The silence between us stretched like a wound. "Do you regret it?" I asked. "Everything we've done?" "No," she said, voice low. "God, no. But I regret that we don't have the luxury of being normal." I stepped closer. "Then let's make a decision because this in between is killing me." She took a breath. "We wait. We get through this campaign, and then we figure out what we can be publicly, without risking everything. So until then what? We pretend. We survive," she said quietly, carefully. I nodded. "Okay." But it wasn't okay because that night when I was leaving the building alone, I saw her walking out the front doors with someone else. A woman, tall, sharp, dressed like she belonged on the cover of Forbes. They laughed at something. Sloane touched the woman's arm. My chest burned. I couldn't tell if it was jealousy, fear, or both. I went home and stared at my phone for hours, willing her to text. She didn't. The next morning she passed my desk without a word, no glance. No note, just the trace of her perfume and the memory of her body still echoing through mine. I was coming undone while she pretended we were fine. Maybe we were. Maybe this is what it means to want someone you can't have, not fully, not without fallout. But I couldn't keep pretending. I typed a message I didn't send. "I miss you." Then another. "Are we still pretending this is temporary? Because I'm not sure I can." And a third. "Tell me if you want me to walk away. Please, just tell me." I sent none of them, just stared until the screen blurred. When I finally looked up, she was in my doorway, eyes locked on mine, expression unreadable. "Come with me," she said. I followed, though I didn't know where, though I knew I'd follow her anywhere. She didn't explain, and I didn't ask. We went down the corridor, past rows of glass offices and watchful eyes, through the emergency stairwell to the building's lower level where the lights were dimmer, and the silence heavier. She stopped at the archives room, the kind of storage space no one touched, unless they needed a 6-year-old pitch deck or were hiding from something real. She tapped in the code without looking back, pushed open the heavy door, and waited until I stepped inside. The lock clicked behind us, louder than it should have. She turned slowly, face pale and serious under the flickering fluorescence. "I can't do this halfway anymore," she said. My chest tightened. "Then don't. No, listen." She moved toward me, each step deliberate. "I've been pretending I could manage you the way I manage everything else. I can't. Not when I think about you every minute I'm not near you. Not when I dream about your mouth and wake up reaching for you. Not when you walk into a room and every rule I've written for myself disappears." My pulse was a drum in my throat. "Then why are you pushing me away?" "Because I'm scared, Arya." Her voice cracked. "Because if I let myself have you, I might not be able to protect you or me. And I've spent my whole life building something no one could tear down." "I'm not here to tear you down," I said. "I'm here to stand beside you if you'll let me." She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Not the junior copywriter, not the complication, not the temptation she tried to keep at arm's length, but the woman who'd waited through every silence, every shut door, every moment she almost let herself fall. "Why you?" she whispered. "Why is it you who undo me?" "Because you already wrote me into your story," I said, stepping closer. "Now you're just trying not to read the ending." She reached for me then, her hands trembling. When her fingers touched my face, I closed my eyes and for a second we just breathed. "Tell me to stop," she said. "Tell me this is wrong." "I can't," I whispered, "because it's not." And then she kissed me like the world was ending. No more hesitation, no more pretending, just mouths meeting in desperation, hands clutching at fabric, breath catching in unison. She pushed me gently against the back wall, her body pressing into mine, and I melted. Her hands were everywhere, my waist, my neck, tangled in my hair, and I couldn't get close enough. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Every movement was a sentence, every kiss a confession. When she pulled back, her lips were swollen, her breath ragged. "This can't be a secret anymore," she said. "I won't keep you in the shadows." "Then don't. I'm going to talk to HR. My eyes widened. "Sloan, not to admit everything, but to restructure. To remove the conflict. I can step back from your campaigns, create the distance they require so we can have the closeness we want." My heart raced. "You do that for you?" "Yes." She rested her forehead against mine. "Because I want you in the light." We left the archives room separately, but something had changed, something permanent. The next day, whispers followed me through the office. People sensed the shift. Some stared, some speculated. But I held my head high because for the first time, I wasn't ashamed of the feelings that had kept me awake for months. Sloan avoided me, but not in fear. In protection, she followed through. She met with HR quietly, formally, and with enough strategic distance to make it look like nothing at all. Just a realignment of responsibilities, a shift in departmental oversight. But we both knew that night. I went to her apartment. She answered the door barefoot in leggings and a soft sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. "It's done," she said. "I made the space. Then I'm stepping into it." I replied. She pulled me inside and the kiss that followed wasn't urgent or desperate. It was reverent, slow, safe. I spent the night again, this time not hidden in shame, but cradled in something real, something beginning. When I woke up tangled in her sheets, sunlight spilling across our skin, I knew we had crossed into new territory. No more pretending, no more hiding. And still I was terrified because now that she was mine, I had everything to lose. It should have felt like a victory. The kind where you finally win the thing you weren't sure you were allowed to want. The meetings had been rearranged. Our names no longer overlapped on the same projects. Sloan and I were now colleagues in the loosed sense. Her sphere of power still looming large, but no longer pressing down directly on mine. There was space. There was air. There was finally room to breathe. But I couldn't. Not really. Because even as I watched her move freely through the office now, no longer avoiding me, no longer burning holes into the back of my head with glances she refused to hold, I still felt a heaviness in my chest I couldn't shake. It was in the way people looked at me, subtle, calculated, like they were trying to figure out what had changed. It was in the way Tessa hesitated before offering to cover my part of a presentation. In the way the receptionist gave me a knowing smile when I passed. No one said anything. No one needed to. The silence had already spoken. I kept waiting for the fall, for the rumor to land, for someone to drop the word favoritism or fling a sarcastic congratulations about moving up the ranks. But the real threat wasn't coming from the outside. It was coming for me because being with her now in the open, even if we didn't touch or linger or say anything more than what was appropriate in the office, it still felt like we were living on borrowed time. I saw it in her eyes, too. The way she flinched when someone entered the elevator while we were already inside. The way her hand hovered near mine in public places, but never quite closed the distance. We were together, but we weren't free. Not really. At night, it was different. Her apartment was warm, dimly lit, filled with music and books, and the scent of something always cooking on the stove. There, she let herself soften. She pulled me into her lap while we read. She kissed me slow and deep and without fear. She whispered things that made me melt and held me like she was afraid I'd vanish if she let go. I've never let anyone this close, she confessed one night, her voice rough against my neck. You terrify me in ways I didn't know were possible. Because I see you, I asked. Because you undo me, she whispered. And still I want more. I didn't know how to tell her. I felt the same. That every time I walked into her space, I left a little more of myself behind. That every kiss felt like a page turned in a story I didn't know how to stop writing. But even in the quiet, even in her arms, the anxiety buzzed under my skin. It came to a head the night she invited me to a gallery opening. One of her clients, high-end, intimate, full of polished women in black dresses and sharp shoes. You don't have to come as my date, she said carefully. But I want you there. I agreed before I could think better of it. I wore a navy silk dress and tried not to think about what it meant to stand beside her in public like that. At first, it was fine. She introduced me as a colleague. I played the part, smiled, nodded, laughed at the right moments. But then someone asked, "So, how long have you two been together?" And my blood went cold. I froze. Sloane hesitated for only a second, then smiled and replied, "We've known each other for a while." It was vague, neutral, perfectly professional, but it felt like a slap. Not because she wasn't ready, but because I realized maybe I wasn't, either. The rest of the night smeared past. I smiled too brightly, drank barely anything, and left early with a kiss to her cheek that stung more than it soothed. I waited until home to come apart. She texted, "You okay?" I stared at the screen, fingers shaking, then typed, "Are we real, Sloane? Are we just playing house in your apartment? Because tonight I didn't feel like yours. I felt like your shadow." Her reply didn't land right away. When it did, it read, "You're not my shadow. You're the sun I keep hiding from because I don't know how to handle the light." I had no idea what to say to that, so I didn't. The next day at work, she passed me in the hall, no words. Just eyes that lingered too long and a silence that cracked something open in my ribs. I was in love with her. That much was undeniable now. The terrifying part wasn't that she might not love me back. It was that she might and be too afraid to live it out loud. It didn't shatter all at once. That would have been cleaner, easier to name. But slow burns carved the deepest scars. With us, it was a gradual collapse. One decision, one silence, one almost moment at a time. After the gallery night, everything pulled tight. Not cold, not distant, just restrained. Like we were both guarding something we hadn't dared define. We still met, still kissed, still undressed each other in the dark like it was the only language we trusted. But she stopped asking me to stay. I started sleeping with one eye on the clock, and every morning we left a little quicker. I told myself we were adapting, that the shift in work dynamics needed recalibration, that it wasn't personal, that she was simply busy. But busy stopped covering it when she started missing texts, canceling dinners, and her eyes no longer lit the same way when I walked into a room. One Thursday evening, I waited for her in our usual spot. Her couch, her playlist, her wine. She was over an hour late. When she finally walked in, she looked exhausted. Her blazer was wrinkled, her heels in one hand, her hair undone. I stood from the sofa. Rough day. That's putting it mildly. I could have brought something, helped. You're not responsible for rescuing me, Arya. The words hit harder than they should have. I tried to steady myself. I'm not trying to rescue you. I'm trying to be here. Well, maybe I don't need you here tonight. Silence. She realized it the second it came out. Her eyes softened. That's not what I meant. But you said it, I whispered. And you meant it enough to let it out. She stepped forward. Please don't do this now. Why not? Because I might say something inconvenient. Because I might force you to admit this version of us only works in your apartment, where no one can judge you. That's not fair, isn't it? I was trembling now. You kissed me like I was oxygen. You said I unraveled you. And now I'm lucky to get 3 words in a hallway. I'm trying. She said, voice climbing. You don't understand what this could cost me. I'm not asking you to torch your career. I'm asking you not to erase me. She flinched. You think that's what I'm doing? I don't know what else to think, Sloane. I'm in this with you deep, and it feels like I'm the only one still swimming. I've put everything on the line for you, she snapped. You think stepping back at work was easy? Do you know how many people questioned it? You think they don't suspect? Then own it, I pleaded. Say it out loud. I'm not ashamed of you. Her face crumpled. But I am ashamed of myself sometimes for not being stronger, for not being ready. Then maybe you're not ready for me, I said. She looked at me, devastation blooming behind her eyes. Arya, I can't keep begging you to see me when you already do. But refuse to admit it, please. She whispered. Don't go. I love you, I said. And it hurts. I walked out before she could answer. I didn't want an apology. I didn't want another promise of later. I wanted something real, and right now, she couldn't give it. I spent that night alone in my own bed, replaying everything from the first time she looked at me across the conference table, to the last kiss that tasted like fear instead of fire. She didn't call. She didn't text. And I didn't reach out. Because if she really wanted me, she'd have to fight for me now. No more hiding. No more waiting. I deserved someone unafraid to be seen with me. Someone who could hold my hand in the light. Even if that someone was still her. Even if I was still holding my breath, waiting for her to be brave enough to stay. 3 days passed. 72 hours of silence pulled so tight it felt like my skin might split. Every phone buzz sent my heart racing. Every email refresh. I searched for her name. Nothing. Maybe that was my answer. Maybe that was what I needed to finally let go. Then Monday came, and the world kept turning. The office looked the same. People laughed in the hallway. The espresso machine hissed. Tessa was ranting about someone's terrible font choices. Life moved on. I sat at my desk pretending I wasn't falling apart in slow motion. Then at 9:37 a.m., an all-staff email landed. Subject line: organizational changes effective immediately. I clicked without thinking, and there it was. Effective today. Sloane Harrington will be stepping down from her role as creative director to pursue personal and professional transitions outside Harrington and Bloom. We thank her for her years of excellence and wish her the absolute best. The air left my lungs. I read it again and again. Her name gone. I stood so fast my chair slid back. Tessa turned toward me. Whoa. Did you see that email? Yeah. I whispered. I saw. I didn't know what I was doing as I crossed the floor, past curious glances and half-formed whispers down the hallway to her office. The blinds were open. The shelves were half empty. Her mug was gone. My heart pounded. The door was open. She was standing near the window, arms crossed, still and quiet like she was absorbing her last few minutes there. She turned when she heard me. You left, I said. I had to. Why? Because I couldn't be your secret anymore either, she said. And I wasn't going to ask you to be mine. So, I chose the only thing I could give up. You didn't have to. Yes, I did, she said, stepping forward. Because you were right, Arya. I kept asking for your love while withholding the truth of mine. I thought I could keep you without showing you to the world. And I was wrong. I thought I could keep my career and my fear and still hold your hand in the dark. But you deserve better. You deserve someone who doesn't hide from what you make them feel. I stared at her breathless. You stepped down for me? I stepped down for me. She corrected gently. So I could come back and fight for you. Not with apologies, not with excuses, but with everything in daylight. On your terms. My chest. You don't have to fix this with a sacrifice. I'm not, she said. I'm fixing it with a choice. And I'm choosing you. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out something folded, creased at the edges. I wrote this before I even knew I was capable of giving it to you. She handed it to me. My fingers unfolded the paper slowly. It was a letter in her handwriting. My name at the top. Arya, it began. If you're reading this, it means I finally stopped being a coward. My eyes blurred. I skimmed down. It wasn't long, just honest. She wrote about watching me that first day, about the meetings, the late nights, the lipstick that nearly undid her. She wrote about how she tried to forget me, rewrite me, avoid me, but never could. And at the end, she wrote, I don't want a version of us that only lives in the shadows. I want all of it. The tension, the risk, the mornings, the fights, the mundane, terrifying, beautiful truth of you and me in the real world. If you still want that too, turn around. I looked up. She was watching me, waiting. Turn around, I asked, confused. Keep reading, she said. I looked at the last line. Because I'll be behind you, waiting to catch you. I turned and there she was, arms open, eyes full of something I'd waited months to see without walls around it. I ran into her. We crashed together, breath and lips and arms and everything I hadn't let myself hope for. The kiss was slow, deep, sacred. She held me like we were finally home. Around us, the office didn't exist. The windows, the emails, the expectations. None of it mattered. Just her, just me, just the truth of what we'd become. When we broke apart, I whispered, now what? Now we live it, she said out loud. She walked out of the building with me that morning. Not behind me, not ahead, but beside me. Her hand in mine. No fear, no secrets, no shadows. And when the sunlight hit us, she smiled and said, I'm ready. I squeezed her hand. So am I, and this time, we didn't look back. Thank you so much for your support. Whether it's by liking, commenting, sharing, or sending your super thanks. You make all the difference here on the channel. See you in the next video.